It is February the 18th, 2016. This is the Watchman News, and I'm Mike Callahan. An article came out, and it is dated for yesterday, scheduled for immediate release, and it's titled, Federal Grand Jury in Nevada Indicts Cliven Bundy and 4 others for felony crimes related to 2014 standoff. It reads as this. Nevada resident Cliven Bundy and 4 others were indicted by a federal grand jury today on 16 felony charges related to the armed assault against federal law enforcement officers that occurred in the Bunkerville, Nevada area on April 12, 2014. U.S. Attorney General Daniel G. Bogdan for the District of Nevada, Special Agent in charge Laura Buckheit for the FBI in Nevada, and Bureau of Land Management Director Neil Cornsey made the announcement. The rule of law has been reaffirmed with these charges, says U.S. Attorney Bogdan. Persons who use force and violence against federal law enforcement officers who are enforcing court orders and nearly causing catastrophic loss of life or injury to others will be brought to justice. This indictment sends a resounding message to those who wish to participate in violent acts that are resolved to pursue them and enforce the laws remaining unwavering, said Special Agent in charge Buckheit. Today marks a tremendous step towards ending more than 20 years of lawbreaking, said Bureau of Land Management Director Neil Cornsey. The nation's public lands belong to all Americans. Apparently all Americans except for the Bundys, huh? Cliven D. Bundy, 69, of Bunkerville, Nevada, Ryan C. Bundy, 43, of Mesquite, Nevada, Ammon E. Bundy, 40, of Emmett, Idaho, Ryan W. Payne, 32, of Anaconda, Montana, and Peter T. Santilli, Jr., 50, of Cincinnati, Ohio, are charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit an offense against the United States, 1 count of conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer, 4 counts of using and carrying a firearm in relation to a crime of violence, 2 counts of assault on a federal officer, 2 counts of threatening a federal law enforcement officer, 3 counts of obstruction to the due administration of justice, 2 counts of interference with interstate commerce by extortion, and 1 count of interstate travel in aid of extortion. The indictment also alleges 5 counts of criminal forfeiture, which upon conviction would require forfeiture of property derived from the proceeds of the crimes totaling at least $3 million, as well as firearms and ammunition possessed and used on April 12, 2014. The defendants are currently in custody in Oregon. Their arraignments on these charges have not yet been set. The indictment states that the charges result from a massive armed assault against federal law enforcement officers that occurred in and around Bunkerville, Nevada on April 12, 2014. The defendants are alleged to have planned, organized, and led the assault in order to extort the officers into abandoning approximately 400 head of cattle that were in their lawful care and custody. In addition to conspiring among themselves to plan and execute these crimes, the defendants recruited, organized, and led hundreds of other followers in using armed force against law enforcement officers in order to thwart the seizure and removal of Cliven Bundy's cattle from federal public lands. Bundy had trespassed on the public lands for over 20 years, refusing to obtain the legally required permits or pay the required fees to keep and graze his cattle on the land. The indictment charges that Cliven Bundy was the leader, organizer, and chief beneficiary of the conspiracy and possessed ultimate authority over the conspiratorial operations and received the economic benefits of the extortion. The remaining defendants are charged as leaders and organizers who conspired with Bundy to achieve his criminal objectives. The maximum penalties for the charges are stated below. Conspiracy to commit an offense against the U.S., 5 years, $250,000 fine. Conspiracy to impede and injure a federal law enforcement officer, 6 years, $250,000 fine. Assault on a federal law enforcement officer, 20 years, $250,000 fine. Threatening a federal law enforcement officer, 10 years, $250,000 fine. Use and carry of a firearm in relation to a crime of violence, 5 years minimum and consecutive. Obstruction of the due administration of justice, 10 years, $250,000 fine. Interference with interstate commerce by extortion, 20 years, $250,000 fine. Interstate travel and aid of extortion, 20 years, $250,000 fine. The case is being investigated by the FBI and the Bureau of Land Management. It is being prosecuted by the Assistant U.S. Attorneys Stephen W. Meyer and Nicholas D. Dickinson and Special Assistant U.S. Attorneys Nadia J. Ahmed and Aaron M. Cregan. The public is reminded that the indictment contains only charges and is not evidence of guilt. The defendants are presumed innocent and entitled to a fair trial at which the government has the burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.